We are live. It is December 6th, Wednesday evening. This is the PFF forecast. It's going to be a great show. We've got SGP strategy with Judah, as usual, fresh off of the little Bengals, little Jake Browning, little Jamar Chase. So hopefully he's got something cooked up for us with the Trubisky Zappy Bowl. It'll be great. Talk little injuries and, of course, the locks of the week. And I saved the best for last. A new segment. Get up. It's what the people are asking for. A little ode to Quibi. It'll be great. Let's rock. So the people are asking what crazy things have happened on Get Up, and we'll get to that. That'll be later in the show. If you know Get Up, you know that they're great at teasing. For 3 straight hours, they just tease you and please you. So you'll have to be patient. It's of course the Trubisky and Zappy Bowl, and I'm very excited about that. I actually have to play multiple players in that game in my fantasy league. And I think I've also got a sizable amount of cash on one of the teams, unfortunately. So I hope there's some good news that we can talk about there. But let's start with injuries. Let's get right into it. Brad, what's the injury landscape looking like?
Yeah, well, I hope when you say you have multiple guys you have to play, it is the Steelers defense and I'm already blanking. And the Patriots defense, because I think those will probably be the 2 top scorers.
You want to know who it is?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Okay. So here's where I'm at. Because everyone cares about my fantasy team. I've got Trevor Lawrence got injured. So now I've got to play. Kenny Pickett was my 4th QB in this 2 QB league. He's dead. So it's Mitchell Trubisky. And you are praying, if you play Mitchell Trubisky, that you have his top target. And I do, George Pickens. So that's the duo that I get to play, Brad.
I do actually, because of our guy Mitchell's comments saying he's going to just sling it. No restrictions, not playing scared. So that is Pickens's ideal MO. So yeah, we'll start there. So obviously no Kenny Pickett. All jokes aside, if anything, it's a 1-to-1 split. You probably could make a case it's an upgrade. Realistically, it's probably just nothing. Najee Harris dinged up. I think he'll go, but I would say it's a boost to a Jalen Warren. I think he'll get more of the touches, which he probably should anyway. Looking around the NFL, you mentioned Trevor Lawrence, probably the bigger one. Lawrence, I'm guessing they're playing games. I would guess he misses this week, but maybe it's only 1 week. Christian Kirk, however, our guy, out for the season. They said out. Maybe they made the Super Bowl, so out for the season for the Jaguars. And then some positive news. Dawson Knox was a full participant for the Bills today. I think that really matters against Kansas City with all their linebacker and safety injuries to have both tight ends for the Bills. Christian Watson hamstring, honestly, better than it looked right away, in prime time. But I'm guessing they hold him out just because he's, his hamstrings have been an issue for his career. And then Dalton Schultz limited for the Houston Texans. Not really sure what ends up there. But yeah, pretty good report, all things considered. Maybe it's because everyone's already hurt, so it can't be that much worse in week 14.
As long as Jake Browning isn't hurt, the best of the best out there will be good. He played really well, but I love the PFF social graphics where it was like top 3 graded quarterbacks this week, and Browning was on there, but Brock Purdy was not. And I just thought about all my fellow Niners fans who just lost their minds seeing that. The great Lombardi himself probably having somewhat of a conniption there. Hearing those injuries, is there anything that comes to mind, Judah, from a betting standpoint?
Not in particular. In some funny way, I feel like the quarterback injuries have been really obviously terrible. But actually, there are fewer injuries on the skill position guys. I mean, Tank Dell was a big one. Obviously, it's after the year. But my sense, this time of year, there are usually just tons of impactful injuries that just don't seem to be necessarily popping up. But none of those injuries, I think, particularly stand out here.
I didn't know that. What's his name was banged up, Najee Harris. Do we think is it actually limiting? What is the deal?
Yeah, no. So I'm already blanking now on what the specific injury is, but they said that he is like probably not going to practice much of the week. I think you really need to practice as a veteran, as a running back. That's not a running back joke. Like it's just you don't need to be out there and going through reps. You can be fine. And they said he's going to push to go. I think it will impact the amount of snaps he plays. I mean, like they should be leaning towards a 60-40 Warren Najee split anyway. So yeah, I think he plays. I do think, yeah, I would downgrade a Najee and upgrade a Warren.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm bullish on Trubisky. Call me crazy. I also think it's kind of insane that he's a 6-point favorite with a total of 30. But all right, let's get into something that's far more interesting, which is SGP strategy. For those of you who are new to this, there is no one better at putting together a well-crafted narrative that correlates a bunch of plays into one SGP than Judah. You can find his write-ups on pff.com. He has 2 each week. Both of them have over 100% ROI on the season. He is fantastic. He hit another one with Jake Browning, Jamar Chase, and the Bengals on Monday. Now, there is no Sam Howell this week, so he's really going to have to go scour the earth for some plays. But Judah, where do you want to go to first?
Yeah, I feel like I haven't gone for a Sam Howell one in like 6 or 7 weeks. It's tough. I miss our boy, and I think our passing yards bet may have died last week, unfortunately. But there's always hope for some week 18 people sitting. Either way, unironically, George, maybe this is kind of to your point about having to start guys in fantasy. I actually really unironically like the overs and SGPs in the Patriots and Steelers game here. Like the fact that we have a 29.5 total, and now I see it kind of trending a little bit towards 30 in a non-weather game is outrageous. That's the start. That just like gives you the sense of like the base of how these teams have been, and like they're bad. Yes, agreed. These are also like not particularly good defenses. I think the Steelers' reputation kind of far outweighs their production, especially as it relates to to preventing explosive plays. Which kind of leads me to my first angle here. The Patriots on throws downfield or throws 20 plus yards are 7 of 41, which is an egregiously low number. It's like 8% lower than the next closest team. And if you look at like the kind of accuracy metrics or PFF grades, like the combo of Jones and Zappy, and I think Zappy's actually probably a little bit better in the limited sample we have of his deep passing. Like there probably should be around like 23rd or 24th. And while this is the sort of thing I would generally like to bet on over the course of a season, this is a great matchup against a Steelers defense that is towards the bottom of the league in allowing explosive plays. Like I don't care who you are. If you are an NFL quarterback, which like Billy Zappe's not great, but going to be some sort of regression. This is the matchup, and all of that comes within the context of this game. And it's ridiculously low unders where I'm seeing 14-1 on Bailey Zappi to have 250 passing yards. 250 passing yards, not a lot of passing yards. Not that much needs to go right in an NFL game. I don't know. Maybe like some guy slips and you have a 75-yard touchdown and you get most of the way there, or you get a 75-yard touchdown and there's a 2-minute drill, or you don't have to do much, or you have 2-minute drills and you don't have to do much to get to 250, which was exactly the logic behind the Jake Browning bet. I didn't think he was going to like be Joe Burrow out there. It's just that like his passing props are really low. We don't know that much about him. He's in a pretty good matchup. Like not that much needs to go right. I think the same thing is true of Bailey Zappi. One of my favorites, I got this at 110-1, was Bailey Zappi, 250 yards, the Patriots to win by 5.5. There is no way that is a 1% chance likely of like a quarterback whom we don't know that much about. And by the way, has thrown for 300 yards in one of his, I think, 3 career starts. Can just go up against the like pretty mediocre defense in a non-weather game and just have an average day for the Patriots to win. That is one of my favorite SGPs. It's one that I've been playing, an angle I've been playing for a couple of huge hits already this year. The Justin Fields one, the Jake Browning one. I am all over that one. I'll leave that as kind of the main build. I think there are some interesting Steelers ones as well. But love the Zappy, 250 yards. New England minus 5.5, 110-1.
Real quick, some injuries I should have mentioned, and I maybe should have mentioned it before. I know Jude already knows this and maybe doesn't care because those guys are bad, but Kayshon Boutte, the receiver, is out. Demario Douglas, the rookie, probably their best receiver, is out. Juju Smith-Schuster was limited today. Devontae Parker was limited today. Ramondre Stevenson is out. So, if you're doing an SGP with a receiver, I guess it's Tyquan Thornton, who, I think has more drops than catches in his career. But anyway, I should have mentioned.
What about Zeke? Zeke
is going to get fed. Like the spoon's coming out on Thursday.
He had like 40 receiving yards last game. I think most of this comes through Devontae Parker, which I think is probably the build. They do happen to have a pretty spread out attack, which is why I tend to not like to build SGPs with like the Patriots style players. And like they'll get their tight ends involved. I'm not that worried. The receivers weren't exactly good to begin with. I mean, Demario Douglas, I think, is a particularly underrated one. But Devontae Parker, if I were building with someone and you wanted to kind of extend that, but still, the thesis has not changed. Like, not that much needs to go right, especially against a bad defense for a quarterback to throw over 250 yards and his team to win by 1 score.
By the way, this is a revenge game for Juju. So he comes back to the place where he's used to making TikToks. Is he alive? Is a legit question. Like 106th in PFF grade. That is unfortunate. I do like about this angle as well is there's when you're going into this game and everyone's going, okay, yeah, they're gonna have to feed Zeke, like they're gonna run the ball. What I do usually think Belichick does a good job of is what the other team is not expecting. And their tackles have played well. So you think about the strength of the Steelers defense, it has been with their edge rushers in Watt and Highsmith, as you can see here. They have got some decent tackle play. Trent Brown has played really well. And so in this game where it's like, okay, they're going to make us beat them with Bailey Zappi, we're going to go in and beat them with Bailey Zappi. Like I can see that angle. In addition, if you're playing from behind, but you're playing from behind in a low scoring game, the chances that you can win the game while still having to play from behind are higher because the score is likely to be closer. So I think that also plays advantage. So I like this, especially because it aligns with the fact that I've taken the stinkiest bet on the board, which is the Patriots to cover 6 previously. So this makes me feel better about it because I can now wrap that into an SGP.
Perfect. That's the rule here to make George feel better about betting on the Patriots. The next one I'll go with is one I believe we talked about the last time these two teams played, and that is the Falcons and Bucks.
Yes.
I like playing both sides of this. A rare SGP where I'm actually not building from a particular team or angle within that team, but actually the game script itself. And that is that these are two of the biggest pass funnels in the league who, yes, they want to run the ball a lot, but that's not exactly a winning strategy against either of these defenses. And their passing props are just so low, especially for two quarterbacks who, Desmond Ridder does have a shallower EDOT, but also they have plenty of scheme deep looks, where we kind of see a discrepancy between the deep percentage and his actual depth of target. And I can see this game getting into a mini shootout, especially in a week where there is a ton of bad weather, especially in the Midwest. This game will be played in a dome. Not that much to this analysis, with the exception of pass funnels, bad pass defenses, quarterbacks who are not priced appropriately. And by the way, I should say, kind of just to go back to my Bailey Zappi, Desmond Ridder has 2 300-yard games. Desmond Ridder is not anyone's idea of a good quarterback. Anyone can kind of have big passing days. But this game, I think, is very low total and has all of the makings of a couple of things going right and an absolute shooting out. You can just get like 275 a pop for each of these quarterbacks. Is going to get you some really juicy odds here, and it's what I like building around.
I, in fact, when I saw this one on the schedule, I remember the Ridder play. And I believe, if I'm remembering that game correctly, was that the one where he fumbled 3 times? But like played really well in spurts. Like there was something fluky that happened in that game, but it was like you could see it going to plan in that game. Do you guys remember
He
what
had
happened
that
in that?
fumble on the goal line where he thought he was
That
about
was
to get
what,
in for a touchdown and someone punched it from
yeah.
behind.
Yeah.
That is how I remember it also.
Yeah. So big fan. So are you playing like Baker and Ritter passing yards? Is that the way that you're doing this?
So I think that's one angle of building it is like just taking the alts of those two. And it's going to depend on pricing, especially Mike Evans, who at this point is like really the clear number one and like has a serious downfield role for the Bucks. I could definitely see myself building a Mayfield, Evans, and then also a second receiver because effectively the production that's priced in is just like Baker's not having these huge passing days and the yards are going to Evans. But if he's going to get, 60 yards past his prop, the production is going to have to go somewhere. And that means probably building, in addition to whatever Evans's production is, maybe like, juicier alt there, and then maybe also building in a Godwin leg. And again, depending on pricing with London and Pitts, I will be fine taking shots on those two guys. It's a little bit more difficult on the Falcon side just because of how dispersed their touches are. But it's still, if one of those guys is going to have, I should say, if Ritter is going to have a spiked week, it is likely that one of those two guys has a spiked week themselves. And I'm fine kind of sprinkling different builds of the kind of same thesis and just like leaning in on one story and hoping that one of them hits as opposed to trying to predict exactly which one I like more.
Oh, that makes sense. Any others for you this week?
Last one, back to the Gardner Minshew well. There is a tiny bit of weather, but it's at least the current forecast is exactly my favorite type of weather, which is like 10 to 15 mile per hour winds, which I think is like just barely starting to influence the deep passing game. But I don't think is actually enough. It's one of those where I think that the market's kind of mispriced this a little bit. It's really 15-20 where wind starts to matter. And this Bengals defense is atrocious right now in every such way. Yes, like they can't stop the run, and there's like some concern that the Colts just run all over them. Maybe the Colts have kind of had varying, pass rates over expected depending on the opponent. With Jonathan Taylor out, I'm not sure if like last week was kind of how we predicted, where they were just going to run because the Titans have been really good against the run, and that's why they passed. But that's kind of why we're playing the tail series. We don't necessarily need to be right about that pregame. But this Bengals defense is dead last in explosive plays and everything explosive related. The Colts target share is very condensed. It is going to go to Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. I'm fine building with each of those. I'm fine building them together. If Gardner Minshew throws 35, 40 times, which is maybe a little bit ambitious, whatever it is, 30, 35 times, he is going to have success. There is some pricing of the win where I don't think it matters. Gardner Minshew is not the type of quarterback who is going to be launching 25-yard bombs downfield. It's more of the kind of 15-yard crossers after the catch style, where the wind, especially at that magnitude, has less of an influence. Props are down. Prices are down. It's a dream matchup. Condensed target share, all the things I like to be building around for SGPs.
What is that? What does this one look like? So is this Minshew and Pittman, Minshew and Downs? Like how are you?
Yeah, it probably depends on the way the alts come out. I'm fine with building around both of them, but that's going to obviously I'd want to extend. Say Minshew, I was like 75 because I didn't know if the Titans were going to be able to keep up. Here, I actually have a little more faith in the Bengals offense keeping up, so I'm fine kind of pushing this to maybe a 300, 325, and in that case, building around both Pittman and Downs. Again, that's a little bit dependent on where their prices line up. I'll just I guess as like a general note, a lot of times when I have these angles, it might be because of like a deep player or like some player that's like very obviously going to propel the quarterback over their prop. I don't think that's kind of the case where it's like, oh, this in this particular matchup, like against this particular corner, that's why you want to be keying in on this receiver. It's more just like, look at the general pricing, look at the matchup, look at how books generally price correlations between wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and then what's the actual reality of the Colts wide receiver 1 and the Colts wide receiver 2, and then this matchup. And like all of that is not priced appropriately. I mean, I don't have the exact pricing, but I know how these things are priced. And there's, I imagine, going to be value on betting on both of these, and then also taking individual shots. At like alts of 100 yards for Josh Downs at 12-1. Maybe Michael Pittman at 125 at 8-1, whatever that might be. I'm guessing I'm pricing here. But I see, to answer your question, both of them I think are in play, with extending the Minshew yards to like 300, 325, and then you can get someone like a 275 with one of those receivers hitting. So three parlays, let's say, from the Colts side.
That makes sense to me. All right, it is time for locks of the week. Before we do that, this podcast is brought to you by Prize Picks. We just talked through a bunch of different angles, all of which you can play on Prize Picks with their daily fantasy product at prizepicks.com/forecast, where you can get first deposit match of up to $100. You talked about the one that I think I like the best there is the Atlanta and Tampa Bay game, because on Prize Picks, you do need to pick a player from both sides of the game. And so there you can kind of play into that narrative of, hey, both these teams are pass funnels. So you get both quarterbacks in there, get a couple of wide receivers. I will be putting that one together, so you can join me on that. If you're into basketball, I played a little Prize Picks in the NBA last night. So it's wonderful, especially if you're in an area where you can't legally bet on sports. This is daily fantasy, so it is not that. The way it works is that you pick 2+ players. You pick whether they go more or less than the particular stat or number of fantasy points or whatever it might be. And then you get to place a kind of multiple. So you can, bet or not bet. You can put down $10 and get, say, 5x return, depending on how many players you put in there. You can get up to 20x your cash back on the best daily fantasy sports platform that is out there. They also have injury insurance, which is super awesome. So if you happen to get a guy that gets hurt in the first half, doesn't return for the second, a good example of that would be Christian Kirk. That player is rebooted. So PrizePicks is truly a cut above. Go to prizepicks.com/forecast. Use the code forecast for your first deposit match of up to $100. Again, prizepicks.com/forecast, and use the code forecast for a deposit match of up to $100. Also, we are brought to you by our friends at Fabric by Gerber Life. As a parent, you've had to come to learn many new skills to provide for your family. Hats off to you if you have done that successfully. Things like doing laundry, meal planning, all that stuff. But what about keeping your family safe into the future with a high quality term life insurance policy? That's a little more annoying than going to just figure out what you're going to eat for the week. And so you don't want to spend a bunch of time doing it. Fabric by Gerber Life makes it super easy. You can get a high quality term life insurance policy, incredibly affordable, in less than 10 minutes, all online. The way you do that is go to meetfabric.com/forecast. That is, again, meetfabric.com/forecast, and go from start to covered in less than 10 minutes. No health exam is required. It is super easy. You can get it done in less time than it takes for halftime in the NFL. All right. We are on to the locks of the week. Brad, we will start with you.
Yep. So kicking one off with a prop in the Detroit Lions Chicago Bears game. Justin Fields' carries prop has been hanging around, I think, a number that is tethered to how the season started in Chicago, when they kind of refused to use his skill set, didn't actually utilize his legs. Since he's returned, he had 18 carries against Detroit the first time, and then he had 12 against Minnesota, with 4 interceptions and, I think a game script that pushed for passing because they never had a lead until the bitter end. So, that being said, against Detroit, their defense the last, since week 7 is one of the worst in the NFL. They're now without Aleem McNeil on the interior. There's going to be a lot of scoring in this game, so I think you're going to get scrambles out of Justin Fields on top of the design run. But this defense in Detroit has always been a defense the Bears have run on, with Justin Fields in particular, over his entire career in Chicago. They don't play as much men as they used to in Detroit, but they still do play, more than kind of league average at this point. And that is who they give him a ton of run to. And also he takes off when he has corners not facing him, playing trail technique. So I think you're going to see a lot of Justin Fields carries at 9.5. I would see if you could find alts. I don't know if there are alts for carries markets. I'm sure Judah could find one out there for you, but I think it's going to be in the high teens, frankly. I think that line is just not reacting enough to the Bears post-injury, now post-bye, just kind of letting him play his style and not really caring about anything else.
I like
Okay.
I like that one. I was super excited to get on here, give a total that I absolutely loved, which was the Bengals Colts at 39.5. And like, it's very rare for me to bet a side or total. But this is one I just like absolutely hammered. Unfortunately, it is already 44, so I will not be giving that one out, though. I still think there's some value, but it has moved 5 points. But speaking of a total that has not moved 5 points, that is the over in the Rams and Ravens. I think there is going to be a bit of weather here, and that's kind of pricing this down a little bit. But the Ravens offense, again, not exactly the type of vertical we're going to be throwing, 30-yard bombs downfield. The Rams do rely a bit more on the deep passing, but can also succeed through the crossers. And I think both these teams are going to have success running the ball. The Rams have proven in a funky way to actually their offensive lines really shut down Cleveland last week in a surprising way. I always talk about like betting on Stafford in kind of spots where he has a situational advantage. I'm a little bit optimistic that like the Rams, maybe it's the quick passing and the game planning around it, are kind of finding ways to mitigate the effects of good defenses, especially when their guys are all healthy. All of it just to say we have two really quality offenses going against each other. Yes, the Ravens defense is very good. 40 points is still extremely low for the two caliber offenses that we have. That's one I'm going to be betting this weekend.
I dig it. My first one is going actually to a game that we've already discussed. It is the over in Bucks Falcons. It is still sub 40. It is 39.5. Couple of reasons why I like this. You talked about the pass funnels for both teams. So I think you're going to have throwing on both sides, but both quarterbacks are also susceptible in throwing more to pick six. And I also like the wide receiver corner matchups in this game. So I think you've got Evans, who I talked about last week, was one of my favorites. He obviously dominated in that game. But he will be playing a set of receivers or set of corners that, AJ Terrell has played well. Jeff Okudah on the other side has not. And so I really like that matchup. And then on the other side of the ball, the Tampa Bay corners can't cover anybody. So like over in 39.5, model likes it as well. I can't believe that I'm going for over. To your point, Judah, I never like to hit the totals generally in locks of the week, try and go for more of some props, but I just couldn't resist. And then hearing you talk about it made me even more bullish on it. So over 39.5 for the lovely Falcons Bucks game.
The lovely fuck. I mean, that in this week, that's like a median.
It's a top 5 game this week.
Yeah. There's no issue with that one whatsoever. All right, so I think Judah will like this one. I hope Judah will like this one. If he doesn't, I guess I should be worried. We talked a bunch on Sunday about the Miami Dolphins and just absolutely obliterating poor teams. I think in particular, we talked about this matchup and had some potential concern for, can they be more physical? And Jeffrey Simmons is not going to play in this game. Probably should have mentioned him. I guess Derrick Henry is, which is kind of a surprise to me, but nevertheless, you're seeing this Miami Dolphins defense turn a corner, play a different brand of football with Vic Fangio. And maybe we play some first half, maybe we approach it differently, but I still just like the spread at 13. I just don't see how this Titans pass rush gets home at all. I don't see how they cover the Miami Dolphins receivers in any way, shape, or form. And we haven't seen Miami take their pedal off the gas, in any game. They're, like we talked about on Sunday, they're trying to get the CFP committee to take notice, not be Florida stated down there in Miami. So, yeah, I just think there's no impetus for them to not continue to do so. They scored a touchdown up 38-15 on the Commanders with 1 minute and 50 seconds to go. Devon Achane is good to go. I'm sure we'll get plenty of him in this game. And then obviously we did part of the write-up, but I just hate this matchup for Will Levis. The more I dove into it, even after Sunday night, against this Fangio defense that takes away explosives, they have the highest coverage grade and the lowest EPA per dropback allowed on passes 15 plus yards downfield. They've allowed the fewest receptions, and they have the second most for the second highest forced incompletion rate. Like, they want you to try to do that against them. Levis literally can't stop just chucking it up. And I think maybe even looking at interceptions props, now I'm just all over the place. But anyway, love Miami in this game, minus 13.
I too love Miami, which is what's going to lead me very nicely into my prop here, which is Andrew Van Ginkel over 2.5 sacks at minus 110. Andrew Van Ginkel, quiet stud. I mean, if you look at any of his numbers, if you go on PFF.com, take a look at Andrew Van Ginkel's numbers. They are legit, and it's, I was like really, really excited about the Dolphins, kind of in the futures outlook. I'll get back to my bet in a second. I just have to mourn our guy, Jalen Phillips, going down. Really, really tough for a defense that I thought was actually peaking and has quietly been playing really well. But Andrew Van Ginkel, I think it kind of plays a lot to, Brad, what you're saying. Tennessee is going to be, I imagine, in passing game script for basically the entire game. I think they're kind of good luck stopping Miami. That's all I'll say. Which Will Levis right now is not a quarterback who situationally can evade sacks. His pressure to sack rate is terrible. His ability to create when plays break down or when plays are perfectly covered, not good. He takes a ton of sacks. Andrew Van Ginkel is getting plenty of run and dominating. They are going to be teeing off, I imagine, on Will Levis in just spots where the Titans' offensive line cannot protect. At even money, I really like this at only needing half a sack.
All right. We usually tend towards overs here. We're optimistic. I have been pessimistic about one team in particular this year. I think you guys will be able to guess which team that is. And that is the Kansas City Chiefs. I think this is an under game for Sky Moore. I think every game is an under game for Sky Moore. Quite frankly, I wish that this had been something that I had been on a little more frequently. Now, I'm trying to find a number for Moore. What I'm seeing 14.5. Yes. I would love a receptions prop for him if I can possibly find it. But here are his receiving totals of late. He had 5 yards against the Packers. He had a whopping 34 against the Raiders, 4 against the Eagles, 33 against the Dolphins, 8 against the Broncos. Those are his last 5. I think he has as many games with 0 or 10, less than 10, than he does with more than 20, which is pretty embarrassing. I would love a receptions prop here if I could find one, but I'm happy to go with 14.5. The coverage unit for the Bills have played pretty well. All the guys that he's going to be facing are grading in the top 25. Joel Douglas has been really solid. But I just think Sky Moore is getting phased out of that offense, especially with Rashee Rice getting more of the target share. MBS still gets a few targets. And I think this is going to end up being a big Kelsey game, even though he can barely move. So no Sky Moore for me. I'm going under on Sky Moore.
There we go. Yeah. No more Sky Moore. I could not agree more with that takeaway. Yeah. So sticking with that game, I mentioned it before. I don't see the markets out yet, but I mentioned how we're going to have, I think, Dawson Knox back in this game, full participant on Wednesday. And right now the market is priced to where, like, I think he's not going to play. You have Dalton Kincaid at 5.5 receptions, 41.5 receiving yards. Maybe that is with a hedge that they know there's going to be another tight end in the equation. But I think if you get on early on Dawson Knox props, they'd be lower. I would imagine 3.5, maybe even 2.5 receptions, 26.5 type, range type yards, maybe even less. We knew when they had both guys, they were in 12 personnel a ton. It obviously is kind of a pseudo 12 personnel because Dalton Kincaid basically just got treated like a big slot by defenses. But I mentioned, so You were down to, I think his name was Jack Cochran, was the fourth linebacker for the Chiefs. He actually played, I thought, pretty well in that game against the Bills. But they have a ton of injuries. Drew Tranquil, obviously Nick Bolton, their stud, is still out at this point. And then also you had Brian Cook at safety, who can come down and make some plays, kind of more of a free safety, but can do a lot. So I think they are going to attack the middle of the field a ton in this game. I think the Chiefs are going to take away the Gabe Davis down the sideline shots. Stephon Diggs, probably gets his, but I don't like his matchup with a L'Jarius Sneed, with a Trent McDuffie. I think those guys are good against the shiftier guys as opposed to the big physical type receivers, as we've seen in like Bengals matchups and stuff like that. So I think they are going to throw a ton over the middle. It's been a susceptible area for the Chiefs all year long. I mentioned it probably a couple weeks ago at this point. They between the numbers, have allowed some of the worst coverage metrics, and they're a good defense in almost every other way. But that is one sore spot, probably because of the linebacker injuries, and Nick Bolton's not a great coverage player anyway. So, long answer short, look for Dawson Knox props when they come out. I think he'll get worked in. I think he's fully healthy, has had the bye week. I think they'll go to him, as much as they would in any other game.
Like that. I think to stay with this game, Rashee Rice over 5.5 receptions. I'm seeing at plus 124. And I think kind of what's baked into this price is like, especially this narrative that I keep hearing of like, oh, Rashee Rice isn't playing. The guy is like, in the last couple of weeks, has clearly emerged as the number one receiver. He's played close to 70% of the snaps in 2 weeks. The Chiefs can't mess around, I don't think, in this game. Done is the time for exploring. This is not a game they want to be losing. And they're going to be throwing. Mahomes clearly likes Rice. Baked into this initial median line is a time where Rashee Rice was not a full-time player. I'm not sure books have fully realized this is a guy who is going to be on the field plenty, over 5.5 receptions at plus 124 for a role that I think when the Chiefs are playing in week 19 in the wild card week, I think this line is going to be closer to 6.5, 7.
Dig it. Okay, I've been extolling the benefits of Brandon Ayuk for quite some time, but this next one I'm actually going to Debo. So they're playing the Seahawks. The Seahawks have a decent coverage unit, but we actually saw them kind of get exposed against the Niners. And I think the way that they're going to expose them is by making them tackle as opposed to cover. And there is where you want to feed Debo Samuel the ball. I'm seeing 48.5 at FanDuel. He's gone over that by a country mile in each of his past 3 games. Brandon Ayuk's total is like a full 20 yards higher. Ayuk, much more of a boomer bust guy, right? Getting some of those longer plays, has not been getting fed quite as much. So I think while Debo is healthy, and he is certainly healthy, over on 48.5, he had 80 yards against this team 2 weeks ago. Clearly a focal point of that offense. I don't think there's really any sort of schematic way to kind of stop that. Not that the Seahawks would be able to if they tried. So I really like Debo in this matchup. I kind of can't believe that his total is sub 50 on FanDuel, but one of my favorites. I think it's a big advantage for how the Niners can attack the Seahawks here.
Yep. No, I do like that a lot. Behind the line of scrimmage, at the line of scrimmage, the quick out stuff, I think they're going to do a ton of. And yeah, he'll get the yards after the catch. I like that one a lot. One more prop for me. A.J. Brown, Philadelphia Eagles, over 6.5 receptions is plus 100. Even money for A.J.B. I think he is. I mean, look, they go to him a ton, but I think you often look at the corners he's going up against, and I think it's a big part of his production. And so in Dallas now we have, Deron Bland exposed a little bit against the more big physical receivers. A.J. Brown can bully a Deron Bland if he wants to. And then Stephon Gilmore is obviously awesome, but an older player, guy that is physical, bump and run Gilmore for a reason. But again, a guy that I think A.J. Brown can bully a little bit and be physical with and push around. So yeah, I think you're going to have, it's the highest total of the week by a country mile. You're going to have a passing game script. We've talked a lot about Philly and how they play either fast or slow, depending on the opponent. I think you are going to see a more up-tempo offense, a more snaps per per seconds of game time. And I think they know they need to throw pretty much the entire time because Dallas is going to score consistently on their defense. So AJ Brown over 6.5 receptions. We do get Dallas Goedert back in this one, which is great news for Philadelphia, but doesn't really concern me. I think this is a fair number regardless. And I think the target share in Philadelphia is just so concentrated. It's basically the two receivers and now maybe a little bit of Goddard. But Goddard really for them is kind of the yards after the catch, check down. Like there's some downfield there, but a lot of it is like tunnel screens and things like that. If they need to attack and push the ball, it's AJB and Devontae Smith. So yeah, AJ Brown over 6.5.
Yeah, that was on my, I would say, like first that didn't make the cut type things in there a lot. There's a lot I like. Staying in that game, CeeDee Lamb over 7.5 receptions. I'm seeing this at plus 114. George, this was one you were really on the first time these two teams played. I mean, the Eagles cannot cover slot receiver. It's been an absolute disaster all season. They've been rotating guys, have not found anyone who could stick there. And they're kind of two, in addition to that angle, I think first off, like the Cowboys in the games that CeeDee Lamb hasn't had 10 plus catches or games against like recently or games against Washington and Carolina, games where they were absolutely dominating and won by huge margin. This is not that type of script. And then generally just like making a note on like, we know how these things are priced. They're going to be projecting some sort of median. The Dallas Cowboys passing offense, since their loss to San Francisco since the bye has just gone from a 50th percentile passing team to a 95th percentile passing team. They're going to throw very, very often. CeeDee Lamb is the number one guy, unquestionably. He's in a great matchup. 7.5 is just not enough. I would love to be playing all tier, even at 9-10 catches. Dallas is going to throw to CeeDee Lamb. That is, of all of the uncertainty in football, that is one thing I am very certain about. That Dallas will be going to CeeDee Lamb early and often here.
This was actually my next one as well. I love it. I loved it the first time, and it's just harder to scheme against a guy that's going to play in the slot. Like I just don't think there's much that they can really do here. And there are a bunch of different weapons. We've seen Brandon Cooks kind of come on since that game, which gives them another thing to think about. But I really like this. I think there are a couple of other ways that you might play this angle. I think Dak gonna have to throw a lot in this game. I like 24.5 completions. I think his totals at like 294, 293 and a half yards. I think those are some other ways to play it, but the CD angle is certainly I think my favorite there. Those are the only ones that I had. Brad, you got any left?
No, I'm good too. The week kind of soured on us. A lot of bad weather, so I'm good with where we're at.
Okay. Before we pick our locks of the week, it is time for Get Up or Get Out. It's a segment. I literally just named it right here. And the way this works is I'm going to continue to give you all what you've been asking for, which is, things from Get Up that you might hear the next morning. But in an ode to a segment that we used to do, which was about Quibi, I am going to do my duty, and I'm going to bring to the fellas a soundbite. I'm going to read it aloud, and they're going to have to guess, is this actually something that was said on Get Up, or am I making it up? Okay. And my writing prowess is impeccable. They're saying that Quibi would still be around if the shows that I wrote up actually made it on. People are saying, I don't know if it's true or not. Okay. So here it is. Quote from Monday morning on Get Up. You know who Brock reminds me of? Another guy that used to play in San Francisco. That's right. Joe Montana. Is that from Get Up, or am I just making it up?
That is from Get Up.
Gotta be from Get Up. Gotta be from Get Up. I mean, he is the next comic of Joe Montana.
Rex Ryan said those words on my iPad at 4 whatever in the morning, whenever that airs on Pacific time. I can barely see, because we're up late on Sunday night. And I didn't need coffee. I did not need coffee, guys, after I heard that. I was up. That's what I realized Get Up provides. It just brings it out of you. And man, hearing that Brock Purdy was the next Joe Montana, my God. It appears that we have some people that have listened to the podcast since the days of Quibi, an absolute legend. Glad that you're paying attention. Glad that you're still listening to the podcast. Maybe we'll get, I think Eric has told me that he would love to do like a ball sack or whack and a Quibi return. So we'll find the right time to bring all of those back, have a little powwow, get together. But you'll have to just deal with Get Up. Okay. You'll just have to deal with it and accept it and like it. Okay. Locks of the week. Here are the options that we have. We've got Fields over rushing, Rams, Ravens over 40.5, Bucks, Falcons over 39.5, Miami minus 13. Fields, by the way, was over 9.5 carries. Van Ginkel, the legend, over 2.25 sacks. Sky Moore, if we can find receptions, but I'm fine with under 14.5 receiving yards. Rashee Rice over 5.5 receptions. Deebo Samuel over 48.5 receiving yards. His Highness AJB over 6.5 receptions. CeeDee Lamb over 7.5 receptions. I think that was it. Were there any more? Missing any?
I think we're good. Also, just in honor of the Get Up segment, we should have talked about during, this isn't Get Up, but it might as well have been, for the Eagles game, do you guys think Marcus Mariota would boost the AJ Brown prop more than Jalen Hurts? Because David Carr thinks they should make a switch at quarterback in Philly.
Hold on. I think that he's obviously trying to get some attention there, but I do think that a lot of what he's saying is correct in that they are not I don't think I'm very worried about them from a Super Bowl perspective with how Hurts is playing right now. And I've said this for like 5 weeks. I don't think he's healthy.
Super Bowl, yes. Should Marcus Mariota be starting is different than your very, legitimate and rational thought.
How do you get Jalen Hurts healthy? I think is a
good
question.
The bye week.
Is that it though? Is the bye week better than letting him rest for 3.5? Okay.
Yes, it's gotta be. Also, I don't know. I'm fighting against the narrative that we learned that much new from the game on Sunday. For a couple of things. Number one, we knew this was all in the cards. We knew the pass defense was bad. Hurts was incredible in the first quarter. The game got away from them. But also, if the Eagles, if one of three things happens differently early in that game, which is they convert one of those two touchdown drives, one of those two field goals into touchdowns, different game. We were talking about this on Sunday night also. If the Brandon Ayuk touchdown catch is ruled an incompletion, which who knows what a catch is these days, this is an entirely different game. It's an entirely different narrative. I've heard people say after the Bills game, after he scored that touchdown in overtime, oh, Jalen Hurts maybe he can really run, and then the next week it's oh, actually Jalen Hurts is clearly one-dimensional. No, he's hurt. Yes. Has he still been effective? Also, yes. You can't lose the number one seed. You can't go into San Francisco. That's a disaster.
I think that's fair. And by the way, we talked about this on Sunday. I said this, right, Brad? This game was closer than the score. And I didn't even think about the IU catch, but it's a great point. The first two drives, how many times would be love to see the numbers on this? How many times have the Eagles gotten in? I think they've gotten to the low red zone in both those drives, or at least the red zone, and not scored a touchdown in back-to-back drives. I don't think I've ever seen that. So super, super fluky there. There were a bunch of missed tackles, which I also think are a little bit fluky. I will say this, I think the Niners, bold call here. I think the Niners need the 1 seed. I would not want to go back into Philly after that. You wear black in there, you do this whole funeral thing. You've got people talking about, oh, now they're the rightful winners of the NFC last year. The Eagles are a very good team. Okay. They can't cover a $5 check, to use a phrase from our dear friend Eric Eager, but they're very good everywhere else. Nick Bosa looked like he was in bed getting tucked in on most of his pass rushes against the pass.
He did.
Dom's an intimidating guy. Dom is an intimidating guy.
Yeah. I don't know that
Not
this
allowed. Yeah, at the next one. He might be in
Yeah,
the stands instead.
like it has me even thinking. I mean, they're 3.5-point underdogs to the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know. I'm still in on the Eagles. I think Carr's point though is valid. I agree with you, Judah. Better to get the 1 seed and rest and then play at home. That's the
I missed that part. So that's actually my fault that all I saw was the clip. So he had a hot take as part of a thought. I only saw the part where he said that. So we're all in the wrong here.
Yeah, but that's just what they do, right? You get the hot take is the only thing that actually makes it on air, right? The only reason I looked at the whole take, actually, our friend Stephen Ruiz quote tweeted it and said, I actually agree with the premise. And I was like, wait, what? And so I had to watch it because I value Stephen Ruiz's takes on football, even if I disagree with them sometimes. And I was like, there's no way that he agrees with this. And so I had to watch it. And then I was like, oh, actually, there's some like, and then it's like, just having a normal conversation. And then all of a sudden just like walks off the deep end.
Fair enough.
Okay. Which ones do we like best?
Alrighty. Let's see.
I'll start with Brad's Fields over 9.5 carries. Number one, I think spot on about the difference in pricing from late season to early weeks. I will also say bad weather in this game, where a lot of the kind of deep passes or screens that they were scheming up are likely Fields runs as replaced in the playbook, or at least just like tucking and running, that sort of thing. The other thing I'll build in here is some non-zero chance that the Bears win this game, which is very rare for the Bears this season, which real nil equity here. We could definitely be seeing a couple of knees late in this game to push us over. That's just additional kind of evidence to the already good thesis, I think.
Oh, my bad. I think I forgot to mention the weather, which was part of it. So thank you for adding that important element as well.
I'm a sucker for these sack props. I just continue to think that there is value and that we'll start to hit them. I think the process is sound. Will Levis is just going to be waiting in the pocket to throw deep.
His pressure to sack rate, from my opinion, was his biggest red flag on his college tape, and it hasn't changed. He's not Malik Willis, so like in a Titans uniform, it looks better, relatively speaking. But yeah, it's a problem. We are going to hit. The process is sound. I think last week's Boye Mafe. Dak took 4 sacks. Mafe had 4 pressures. It just unfortunately didn't line up for us.
So I'm a fan of that one. My favorite of the ones that I put out there, I think, is the Debo 48.5.
Yeah.
But also love CD over 7.5 as well. I think those are the ones that were my favorites.
Both of those I absolutely love. Yeah, the Eagles are CD's going to go off.
Yep. Same here.
And yeah, Debo for sure. Yeah.
Any others that we want to get involved? Got a nice little list.
We got a 4-pack of props.
All right, so we've got
teaser legs.
What'd you say?
I said no teaser legs. What's gotten into us?
I know.
I don't.
It's a bad Wong week.
Here. It is. It really is.
It's a shitty Wong week. Okay, so we've got Justin Fields over 9.5 carries. Andrew Van Ginkel over 0.25 sacks. What did you get that at? Plus 130?
Even.
Oh, it's
Van
even.
Ginkel.
Okay. Yeah. The market's got to respect the AVG. Okay. We've got Deebo Samuel over 48.5 receiving yards and CeeDee Lamb over 7.5 receptions. Those are the locks of the week. Tune in on Sunday night to hear all of the Get Up intros for Monday morning. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Make sure you join the Discord, follow Brad and Judah so you can make sure that you get on it and everything. And enjoy your weekend. We love you all. Peace.